Hey, you're a scientist, right? So I have a question. What would you do if you had a time machine?
A time machine? You are not talking about a time machine. You are talking about regrets. So if you want to ask about regrets, just ask about regrets.
In today's video, I'm going to show you my Better Call Saul iceberg. Well, we're not just going to uncover stuff from Better Call Saul, but more stuff from the broader Breaking Bad universe, and stuff that wasn't on my Breaking Bad iceberg will be on this one. And out of all the videos I've done, all the icebergs I've done, this could be the darkest one. From the coolest theory in TV, being even more plausible after Better Call Saul, to another Mandela effect, and some real dark stuff from behind the scenes. Nearly 3 years after Better Call Saul ended, and we last saw the Breaking Bad universe, and there's still so much to talk about from the past and the future. Now, if you don't know what an iceberg is already, it's a chart about a certain topic with tiers of popularity, much like a literal iceberg. The stuff at the top is the more basic stuff that you might already know, but the further down we go, the more obscure it becomes. I've made this chart myself, and there's 5 tiers: the surface, underwater, murky waters, the deep, and finally dark unknown. And before we get into it, I want to thank the sponsors of this video, Polybuzz. Polybuzz is an app with over 10 million downloads worldwide that lets you create and chat with chatbots of any character or real person you can think of. You can find them on Polybuzz or make them yourself. What questions would you ask your favourite characters? You can ask Saul Goodman what you should wear today. You can tell Chuck McGill what happened to Howard. You can ask Dexter what he thinks of Joe Goldberg. Or you can ask Jesse Pinkman what game you should play. You can simulate scenarios and stories with any character and world you want. I found a Walking Dead one where you arrive at the gates of Alexandria and confronted by Rick, and it was all going well until I said I was an alien. And sometimes you might just want to vent. So if you're interested, go to the link in the description or pinned comment to download it now. And when you start it up at the top, in the search bar, search Drake to use my code to get free premium features. Thanks again to Polybuzz for sponsoring today's video. Let's begin. The surface. Intro progression. So much like The Walking Dead, the intros to the episodes would change over time. With The Walking Dead, the text would decay. With Better Call Saul, it would become more and more black and white, and by season 6, the colour was completely gone, and in the last episodes, the VHS tape ends. No intro, no quirky music. The colour has left, as it did from Saul's life. I'd always wanted the colour to return in the final episode as Jimmy redeems himself and takes responsibility, but it didn't quite do it how I wanted. The only colour at the end is in Kim's lighter, and at the end of the cigarette, showing that these meetings with Kim is the only colour in Jimmy's life now. And as Vince Gilligan said, hope.
The little bit of a color in the end of the cigarette, in the very last episode, to me, that's hope. That he respects him. There's some love there.
Jimmy's names. Saul Goodman's real name is James McGill, or Jimmy, then had his lawyer name, Saul Goodman, and then finally after Breaking Bad, when he fled to his new life, he was renamed as Gene Takovic. He also had a nickname when he was younger, Slippin' Jimmy.
You're Slippin' Jimmy. You're Slippin' Jimmy!
There was a short cartoon series made for Jimmy, Slippin' Jimmy, similar to the style of that Big Mouth cartoon, but for Better Call Saul, it was Jimmy when he was much younger. It's there if you want it, but it's not really in line with what Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul audiences would go for. People didn't really like it. Ariel Levine wrote it, the same writer who wrote the fourth wall breaking promos, which were good.
What's the warm-up thing you were telling me about?
I think Mom makes meat.
Nope, it was definitely less gross than that.
And it is nonetheless part of the Better Call Saul lore.
He's trying to make us do math. Get him!
Minisodes. So much like I spoke about on my Breaking Bad iceberg, some of these minisodes are my favourite things on the internet.
Jesus! No, not in the hat. It's a rental. So your thinking was that I would have a lockpick up my ass. Is that right? You don't?
Well, Saul has his own series of them, from his own live Saul Cam commercials featuring characters he's helped, most that we know of, and more that wasn't featured on the show.
Oh, the law can be slippery. Let me handle it for you.
Mountain Man, or his less scary name, Clarence. He's a character that appears as a bodyguard throughout Better Call Saul and appears in El Camino. In Season 1, Episode 9 as a short-lived bodyguard for Price.
You want one?
In season 4 episode 6, Jimmy hires Clarence and Huel to scare some kids. In season 5 episode 1, he's seen working at the churro cart while Saul sells his phones, and finally in El Camino, he's seen as a bouncer delivering girls to the candy welding compound.
Wake up, Clarence, let's go!
It was Ignacio. Ignacio Varga and Eduardo Salamanca, Nacho and Lalo, were created solely from Saul's throwaway line in his first Breaking Bad episode. When it happened, it was just to allude to some dodgy past.
No, it wasn't me. It was Ignacio. He's the one. Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo? Who?
It wasn't me. It was the guy. Ignacio.
I'm gonna come back, and then you are gonna tell me the whole story.
Who's Lalo?
Who?
Lalo. Got some dude named Lalo sent us. You seem pretty freaked out. Never heard of no Lalo on the street.
It's nobody. He said he was. He told me.
You understand me? He is not coming back.
He was so paranoid about Lalo years later, because Mike had already told him before that he was dead, and he came back. It was going to be a comedy. On the set of Breaking Bad Season 2, a member of the crew jokingly said that Saul should get his own spin-off, and it was originally an idea that it would be a comedy.
Is it true the first original idea was half-hour comedy, not an hour?
Yeah, we did. We talked about it was maybe only an episode or two after Saul had first appeared. It might have been in Season 2 of Breaking Bad, and one of our crew folks, one of our grips or gaffers said, you know, when you guys are doing the Saul Goodman spinoff, you really need to, and everybody laughed, we all laughed, but the joke became, it's kind of planted a seed in our heads, and we thought, you know, that would be fun to do a spinoff.
The Walter walks in ending. Since the start of the show, there were theories that the ending of Better Call Saul would just be Walter walking in to meet Saul, perfectly catching up to Breaking Bad.
Mr. Mayhew, Saul Goodman.
But I don't like that. A prequel is so much more than just filling in blank spaces, and with what Better Call Saul was like and how good it was, it always deserved its own ending past the Breaking Bad storyline. There are many Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul memes. Like most popular good shows you can think of, there's many memes for these shows, such as Kid Named Finger, 3D Saul. Walter's reaction to Hank dying is now a meme. Dean Norris and his many cameos. Cameos are a site where you pay people to say stuff, and I've seen loads of other people do it, but Dean Norris says anything.
Quandale Dinglenut will take your Robux generator. Walt, I don't know, man. Been seeming sus lately. Looks like we have an imposter among us. I saw that you wanted... Don't lie to me, Walt! Sussy baka. You sussy baka, you. Listen, word around town is that you're a furry. You gonna bark for me? Come on, do it, dog. Murray, come look at this pussy. You need to get back on PlayStation, all right? I heard you watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I mean, what's really bizarre is the fact you're getting no Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's about drive. It's about power. It's time for Discord mods to take a damn shower. Make Big Chungus proud, and me as well. You hear? Goofy yearly gritty competition in Ohio. Also, L plus ratio, plus you get no bro. Big Chungus. Have fun swimming around in Nikocato's belly. #1 victory royale.
You should lay off the Jensen Impact, or I'm going to have to tell Uncle Hank.
Hey, Kid Named Finger.
And of course the old faithful.
Walter.
Underwater, Caldera's notebook decoded. Caldera had a little black notebook with contacts to the underworld, even including Ed the Disappearer's card, which went on to be a big part of the story. But the rest is all in code, so we didn't know most of who these people were. But now, thanks to an account called A Syrian Fish on Reddit, we do. Here's the picture if you wanted to pause and see for yourself. You can see he had contacts like Sobchak/Mr. X, which is Stephen Hawk's character, QB, Huel, and Lawson. And really interestingly, a jumble of letters that can spell Gene lives or no Russians. With when it was filmed, I'm not sure that it could be a reference to current times. It reminds me more of that MW2 mission.
Remember, no Russian.
Once Caldera was looking to retire, and just to be a vet for good, he was looking to sell the book, and it's revealed he sold it to Saul, and he kept it in his house. Fringsback. If you take the first letter of each episode of Season 2, you can spell out Fringsback, which was teasing his return in Season 3, Mike Ehrmantraut's origin. When Jane died and Jesse calls Walter, it was meant to be Saul that went to help Jesse, but Bob Odenkirk couldn't make it, so they called Jonathan Banks and made Mike.
I knew who to call.
Saul Goodman sent me.
And he would go on to be, I think, one of the best characters in TV. It is interesting how different Mike is at first in that first episode. He has the black sunglasses on, which isn't something you'd really expect Mike to do when you watch Better Call Saul, and even in late Breaking Bad. He even slaps Jesse, which I don't think he would have done, whether he knew Jesse yet or not.
Say it, please. I woke up, I found her, that's all I know.
But I think in the last 3 episodes of Better Call Saul, they do a really good job of showing how Mike and Saul both became so different. They gave the glasses to Mike and showed that he just became more sour.
Either I'm gonna leave, or I'm gonna put my foot in your skull.
Lalo and Howard are in Breaking Bad. I knew towards the end of Better Call Saul that it would get darker. We would inevitably have to catch up to Gene's timeline and of course find out everything that happened between Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad for Saul to be so different. And many things happened, but it was Howard's death that made sure things would never be the same again. One of the most disturbing and shocking things I've seen in a show, and Howard still hasn't really been given complete justice. The living characters still don't know where he's buried, and it's with his killer. Lalo and Howard both got buried under the lab that we see Walter and Jesse cooking in Breaking Bad. It's so haunting to think that all the time we were watching Better Call Saul, all that wondering of what happened to these characters that we don't see in Breaking Bad, these two were underneath them all along. Every moment in that lab, in that show, they were there.
I snuck down here in a laundry hamper for the rest of eternity.
I get to the top of the next page and it says, enter Lalo. And I was like, huh?
He really does have one of the most tragic stories in all of TV, and it wasn't exactly a walk in the park for Howard either. Sobchak, aka Mr. X, replaced QB. In season 5 episode 5, Bill Burr's character QB was meant to appear. They couldn't make it, so they called Stephen Ogg to reprise his role from season 1 episode 9 as the other short-lived bodyguard.
How's Kubi?
No idea.
American Greed is a documentary on CNBC that sheds light on some of the biggest financial crimes in US history, and on April 1st, 2022, their official YouTube channel uploaded a James McGill special highlighting the crimes of Saul Goodman, retelling his story with previously seen Better Call Saul characters appearing and talking about the events of Breaking Bad and what they think of Jimmy now. Before the finale, we didn't see stuff like that, so it was really cool. SaulGoodman.com and Saul Goodman Productions. Much like with SaveWalterWhite.com, SaulGoodman.com is a real website that takes you to the AMC website.
Oh, hello. Yeah, a lawsuit sounds good, Saul, but...
There's also a Saul Goodman Productions website, which was Jimmy's advertising agency. You can see blueprints of his commercials and scripts. Callable numbers. There are phone numbers, mainly Saul's, that appear in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, that you can call and get an actual answer on. You've got to call them from US numbers, so I can't do it, but here's some examples of people that did.
You've reached Saul Goodman. Looking for phones? Well, I've got a surprise for you. Hi, you've reached Dean Takovic. If you're calling this number, you may have come across my flyer. Or better yet, very friendly fluffball named Nippy. Nacho, leave it.
Welcome. You've reached the offices of Saul Goodman Productions.
The number you have reached is no longer in service. There is no further information at this time.
Tuco's abuelita, grandma, is dead. Probably. When speculating on how Lalo's story would end, it would always be the go-to to go back to that scene in Breaking Bad where Gus tells Hector that he is the last of the Salamancas and the rest are dead. For Lalo that's obvious, but people think this could also mean Tuco's abuelita is also dead. But the thing is, Gus was referencing the Salamancas that were his soldiers working for him and a possible threat. I don't think Gus would be mentioning the grandma watching TV. Zafiro Nejo is a brand of tequila in the Breaking Bad universe, first seen in Breaking Bad season 4 episode 10, when Gus gives the poisoned bottle to Eladio.
Zafiro Añejo.
It appears again in Season 2 Episode 1 of Better Call Saul, when Jimmy and Kim are conning Ken, then again in Season 3 Episode 9, Season 4 Episode 1, and finally Season 6 Episode 1. I always saw the reoccurrence of the bottle and the bottle topper in Better Call Saul as popping up in key points in Jimmy's transformation into Saul Goodman. At the start where he started conning people with Kim, when the Sandpiper case was settled, after Chuck dies, and finally he prepares to buy a bottle after further winning in tormenting Howard. But when it goes wrong, he leaves it and doesn't buy it. The last we see of it is the bottle topper by itself at Saul's house, as his house and possessions are being taken at the very end of his time as Saul, and he's becoming Gene. Murky Waters. Greenbrier. For years, the Breaking Bad movie with Jesse had the codename Greenbrier. While filming El Camino, they also had codenames for the actors. Bert and Ernie were Walt and Jesse's names. Mr. and Mrs. Pinkman were Mr. and Mrs. Cleaver. Jane was Ruby. Mike's was Pops, but it should have been Finger. Todd was Dolph, short for... Badger and Skinny Pete were Kirk and Pickard. Walter's handprint in El Camino. They couldn't use the original set for Jack's compound.
Go back to the original place because it was completely leveled.
So they had to rebuild the set for the flashback scenes in El Camino, but they used most of the exact same props that were there at the latest part of the timeline in the Breaking Bad finale, and Walter's red handprint is still there. In the final shot, it's cleverly hidden by light. Drive reference. In the movie Drive, a mobster called Bernie asks Bryan Cranston's character Shannon where the driver might have driven off to.
Any idea where he might be? Mexico. Maybe it was Belize.
Referencing Saul's metaphor for death.
Have you given any thought to sending him on a trip to Belize?
Which brings us onto the boys reference. In season 1 episode 8, Giancarlo Esposito's first appearance as Stan Edgar, he says this.
Hey, don't complain of my retirement yet. Just saying, someone needs to run this show when I move to Belize.
These two actors' most prominent roles being from Breaking Bad, I think it's intentional. Recently in season 4, also sent his family there, and A-Train, who everyone thought was gonna die, or is gonna die, focused on it.
I want 2 one-way tickets to Belize.
You think I don't want to just peace out to Belize? You think Homelander and Vought ain't coming to Belize?
But that could be nothing, or hinting at the new The Boys Mexico spin-off, as Belize borders Mexico. Which brings us onto Daredevil reference that I'm gonna leave up to you to decide whether it's intentional or not.
How about Belize?
Belize I like.
Now you might be thinking we can't just say every mention of Belize is a reference to Breaking Bad. This could be nothing, and I agree with you, apart from Tony Dalton's in it. He plays the swordsman, so if he dies or Heather Glenn dies, Belize was 100% a deliberate reference to Breaking Bad. The Jeff recast POV theory. Something I thought was a bit distracting at first was when Jeff, the taxi driver who recognised Saul in his new life, was recast from Don Harvey to Pat Healy, from a condescending, uncomfortable and eerie stranger to a pushover, geeky character that frankly made everything about Jeff less threatening. At first, I didn't know how to think, as with the Jeff that first appeared in the Gene scenes, it felt like we wouldn't get a proper conclusion to it, because it didn't feel the same, like it was being redone. But the new actor worked really well, especially when I ran into theories online that said this change in appearance actually works really well when you look at it like Jimmy's point of view changing. Before, when Jeff was tormenting him, he was in hiding, he was nervous, scared and cowering down, but after deciding not to run and not to be pushed over and face his fears, when we next see Jeff, when Jimmy confronts him, he doesn't look so intimidating. He wasn't even trying to con or blackmail Jimmy like you'd think, and he was revealed to be this wannabe thief, looking for tips from the notorious Albuquerque criminal, Jimmy's bad knees. When Saul first appears in Breaking Bad, he mentions his bad knees.
Alright, I'm gonna stand up, alright? Because I got bad knees.
And again in season 1 episode 3 of Better Call Saul.
I got bad knees, ow!
And we find out in the last episode what caused his knee pain to begin with, when he tells Walter himself.
When I was 22, I pulled a slip and fall outside Marshall Fields. I did. I hit the ice fast as I could. I biffed it so hard I heard a crack. It wasn't the ice, it was me. My knee's never been the same.
A slip and fall. So you were always like this.
De-aged episodes. Some channels out there have de-aged scenes of Better Call Saul, El Camino and the flashback scenes in Breaking Bad. And I've added it to the Iceberg because I think one day I could make a box set called Better Call Saul De-aged, so you could rewatch the whole show and those flashback scenes or those episodes could even more look like they were filmed before Breaking Bad. I think one of the only negatives of Breaking Bad projects are the flashback scenes where sometimes it can look a bit odd. I mean, it's not a problem, it's the beauty of acting. You don't need them to look the exact same, but it helps. I think it would be really cool if one day there's an extra setting where you can toggle the de-aging effect. If, of course, it doesn't wash away the works of the actors, and it just makes it look a bit better. For the people that want it, I think it could be good for all prequels.
Yo, Mr. White, these are the bombs.
Chuck lived 1 minute away from Jesse's house. It's crazy to put into perspective that the events of Better Call Saul with Chuck and his house, and him not wanting to leave it, happened barely a minute away from where Jesse was living at his auntie's house. The Deep. Jimmy could get out early. Jimmy and Kim both joked about it, but he really could. Vince Gilligan seems to think it himself.
Although I don't know if they keep you in for 86 years, really. Hopefully not. You know, with good behavior, maybe it's 30. You know, he might get out.
Here we go.
Yeah.
The whole point of the end of his story is that he, in the end, takes accountability. He returns to being Jimmy, and a big part of that is taking the punishment. So he will no doubt do time, but it's possible not the full sentence. The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad universe connection is even more plausible after Better Call Saul.
That psychopath came back from the dead and he walked through that door. Zombies.
We might see javelinas.
I think it would be fine if they crossed over. I think they'd get on well.
With your big mouth, you're nothing. The heck you're such a make it about you.
So of course, to quickly run down all of the Easter eggs and references from both shows, from the same type of red Dodge Challenger that Walt Jr. had being used by Glenn, and then later the person on the phone in Breaking Bad at the car dealership being called Glenn.
Oh, and make sure you talk to the general manager. His name is Glenn.
Showing that maybe he wasn't always just a pizza delivery driver in Atlanta, Georgia, but perhaps a year before could have worked at his dad's car dealership in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which actually adds depth to why he was so excited expected to finally be able to drive such a car. In The Walking Dead Season 2 Episode 2, you can actually see Heisenberg's blue product in Merle Dixon's product bag, which is so cool, the fact that Daryl has actually seen that. I mean, if we're being honest, he's probably drunk. Then Daryl telling Beth about Merle's dealer. That sounds a lot like Jesse.
Merle had this dealer, this janky little white guy. One day we were over at his house watching TV. It wasn't even noon yet. We were all wasted. Merle was high, watching the show, and Merle was talking all this dumb stuff about it. He wouldn't let up. Merle never could. Turns out it was the Tweakers kid's favorite show. He never sees his kid, so he felt guilty about it or something. He punches Merle in the face. So I started hitting the Tweaker like hard as I can. He pulls a gun, sticks it right here, and says, "I'm gonna kill you, bitch."
Then Heisenberg's theme song being played in Mexico in Fear the Walking Dead Season 3. In The Walking Dead Season 3, a similar coffee machine to what Gale had made in Breaking Bad can be seen on Milton's table.
Little pet project of mine.
Who was very alike to Gale, and they were both scientists because they both met at a university. In The Walking Dead, Lydia's dad and mum Alpha singing the same song that Todd had his ringtone to when Breaking Bad Lydia called him. That of course is just a coincidence, the same as them both having black hair. And no, I'm not going to count the governor saying there was a member of Woodbury called Iceberg.
Your friends killed 6 good people. Crowley, Tim, Julio, Iceberg, Bob Adams.
But in the same way, I don't think we can disprove they're in the same universe. Just because Badger, Skinny Pete, Saul, and even Hank have said the word zombie.
Zombie, 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 zombie. Zombies, 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 zombies.
Rock stars shrink, you know? They come in like zombies, out like larks, you know what I'm saying?
The creator of the Walking Dead universe, Robert Kirkman, has agreed that the word exists, with it being mentioned in the comic universe sparingly.
The keys are on that zombie out on the street.
And not everyone calls the zombies walkers. We've seen across the main show and other shows that they call them all different names. There was one time where I got the feeling a character called them zombies. In Season 4 Episode 1, Rick ventures out of the prison and comes across a character called Clara. She's from Ireland and found it unusual and a bit funny that Rick would call the zombies walkers.
People are the best defense against walkers.
You're calling them walkers.
I kind of got the impression that she was laughing because she just calls them zombies. She wasn't the typical melodramatic American Walking Dead character. This was 2013, it really could have been that. But we've seen characters go around the world a bit now and no one said zombie yet. And the craziest thing about this, you couldn't make this up. This is the same actress, Kerry Condon, who plays Mike Ehrmantraut's daughter-in-law, Stacy. That's of course just a coincidence. But speaking of which, I don't think it matters that actors have already been in both. But all of that aside, the facts of such Easter eggs, it can't actually be proven that they're not connected. Even with Better Call Saul being a prequel, after so many scenes and whole episodes set after Breaking Bad, they had so much opportunity to go past 2010, but in 6 seasons they didn't. They even both made jokes about Roombas, because that was a new popular thing in 2010.
It's just a Roomba.
A what?
I just got one when it started.
The hell is that?
A Roomba.
Did that just happen?
The apocalypse in The Walking Dead started in 2010. Outbreak Day is said to be August 26th. And what a coincidence that the end of El Camino is set in early September 2010, just days after the outbreak started in France. Outbreak Day isn't when the whole world became an apocalypse, just when wildfire broke out and quickly started to spread, hence the name. And what a coincidence that Jesse's in such an isolated place like Alaska, less people. So Better Call Saul made it even more likely they effectively pulled Jesse out of the places with most people. So in a court, you simply couldn't prove that it's not in the same universe. You can say it's stupid, you can say it's wacky and doesn't make sense, but you couldn't prove it. I've said before, I think the most they would do is like a one-off episode on a show like Tales of the Walking Dead, showing Jesse in Alaska, finding out about the walkers and having his own little story. Wouldn't even have to be canon, just for fun, which is what these Easter eggs are for after all. 2 of AMC's greatest and most popular shows, and I think the greatest in TV, referencing each other. Mike's ready, he's been biting people. I stumbled across this interview that Aaron Paul and Norman Reedus did in 2016 for their movie 999, and I think what they say here is really cool.
And then playing brothers, did you know each other since you guys are kind of related as far as AMC?
There's that, but we've actually known each other for longer than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, many, many moons. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time.
Remember that episode with Carol and I on a van about to fall off of a bridge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was, we could see that from this set. So Both sets would like kind of wait on each other. They could see the thing in the background. Just doing Walking Dead. 2 guys going back.
Yeah,
Wow.
We were so lucky that we were shooting in Georgia because the production was able to work with Norman's schedule.
Aaron Paul, Jesse, was there. He watched this scene happen. This is also them with the actor for Dr. Jenner, Noah Emmerich, which is really cool in itself. Stay tuned, there's more about The Walking Dead later. Cancelled Breaking Bad games. So this isn't like what AMC do with The Walking Dead games. AMC just like to give The Walking Dead license to any studio, and there's no honour. Anyone gets it, anyone can combine textures. The Breaking Bad games ideas were some real thoughtful projects that just didn't turn out to happen, or at least yet. Vince Gilligan and some other talented writers had created some real stories for these games, and he even mentioned he had Rockstar Games in mind.
Early on, I'm not much of a video game player, but how can you not know of Grand Theft Auto? And I remember saying to the guys who said, yes, originally Breaking Bad, I said, who owns Grand Theft Auto? Can't you have like a module? There have been quite a few attempts at video games. Some of them kind of sort of made it to market. We tried to do a VR experience with the Sony PlayStation VR headset. We did a mobile game. It lasted for a little while. Jen Carroll, she put a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of talent into writing 3 or 4 different stories for 3 or 4 different video games, including the VR thing. There was a lot of people hours poured into that. Literally takes years and millions of dollars, especially when you're trying to break new ground with VR and whatnot. Never quite came to fruition. It's a shame. If you're going to make a video game, very cognizant of keeping the brand to as high a level as we can keep it. So got to make it great. We just don't have enough bandwidth usually to make it work.
There were games planned out, but when it came to actually producing it, they couldn't quite get anything going to the quality that they would want. But it's a shame because these were some real stories, and they would have been canon by the way they talk about it.
You tell me you can get me an RV for $1,400 at 6 in the morning.
I remember when GTA 5 Online first came out, and I would spawn the Journey RV and throw tear gas behind it and on the roof, and text people in-game, Jesse, we need to cook. I got mugged, but I still have a garage of Breaking Bad cars. I've even got a go-kart like what Jesse had. I even like to scream on the highway. But Rockstar Games have now made some direct references to Breaking Bad. You can now have your own blue product empire, and now you can get the new version of the Journey RV, the Journey 2, make it a cream colour and buy the Cooking Time livery. So these are some direct references. GTA 5 came out the same year Breaking Bad ended, so it's good to see them reference it like that. As far as seeing a game one day, Vince Gilligan said not to hold your breath about it, but if there were plans before and we get to a point where it's been a few years since we last saw the Breaking Bad universe, all it takes is a good, proper game studio to be able to make and work on stuff that is as good as the stories and ideas they had. But I'm planning to make a video on what the games were really going to be and the stories they had. I'll go into more detail then. But with these references, keep an eye out for Breaking Bad stuff in GTA 6. Vince Gilligan's wife is called Holly Hartwell Rice, which inspired Walter's middle name and his daughter being called Holly. His wife also plays a teacher at Walter's school. In season 6 episode 12, in the scene where Kim cries on the bus, she's that same character who puts her hand out. Broke character. In season 1 episode 4, it looks like Michael Mando and Bob Odenkirk broke character for a bit, but they played it off and kept it in.
Somebody told those people to go camping. Somebody warned them.
They're very woodsy. And between you and me, they're pretty rash when it comes to the decision making. They're not really the plan ahead types.
Yeah, I'd cut the cute attitude.
The dark theories of Howard's fate. Even though we now know Howard's fate, the theories from years before are haunting to think about. And with how the writers connected the dots later, these could have really happened. There were theories that he died in the Wayfarer 515, and even that he was one of the men killed in Walter and Jack's 2-minute killing plan at the prison, because there was one that looked a bit like Howard, and you can't really say they would have never done that, because it doesn't make sense, because they just would have made it make sense, and joined the dots later as they did. So if they did do this, they could have actually said that Howard's in there because of Saul and Gus, because in retaliation to Jimmy tormenting him, Howard hired a private investigator into Saul and he found out stuff. Gus said Howard had to die, but instead, as he doesn't know too much about Gus himself yet, Mike convinces him to let him set Howard up in prison for a bit, and even gets Jimmy to do it, as he was already doing in the show.
I don't know any Joe Dog or Tugboat.
That's the story you were setting up for this guy, yeah? You keep telling the lie that you've been telling.
They alluded to Mike having done this before in Breaking Bad when Walter wanted to have Jesse arrested when he was trying to take out Gus's dealers. So this really wasn't out of the question at all with how the writers joined stuff up later.
But you
get him arrested?
I spoke to Goodman about Pinkman and this plan of yours.
Saul said you've done things like this before.
And they could have said that years later when Mike dies, he's no longer protected. Walter finds out about these people that know stuff and has them killed, Howard being one of them. Really chilling. Just like what happened, he would have stumbled into this horrible side of the show because of Jimmy and Kim, and would find out this guy that barely knew anything had such a twisted end already in Breaking Bad. And what happened to him anyway, which is of course a lot better. Howard did find out, and it was still equally, if not more disturbing.
Things work out the way they're supposed to, I guess.
The Better Call Saul comics. There are Better Call Saul comics that came out in 2015 as the show was starting. The first one, Client's Development, actually showing the process of Saul and Mike discovering Walter White's life and identity. Some of the stuff that happened in it were adapted really closely in season 6, so they're canon and the writers were loyal to them, perhaps even inadvertently. iStation Zebra. iStation Zebra Associates is a holding company that Saul used for tax evasion. It was first a Cold War novel that came out in 1963, and then a movie that came out in 1968. Saul and Kim watched that movie in season 2 episode 3, and Kim was a big fan of it, and so when they conned someone later, they wrote the check out to iStation Zebra Associates, which is what caused suspicion that she may still be around in the Breaking Bad days behind the scenes, because Saul went on to use iStation Zebra Associates.
And make it out to Ice Station Zebra Associates. That's my loan out.
What is Ice Station Zebra Associates?
Kim in Breaking Bad. At the start of Better Call Saul, the writers didn't know exactly what would happen in Saul's backstory and what would happen to the Better Call Saul original characters like Nacho, Howard and Kim. So in Breaking Bad, no one really knew yet. But there is this scene in Breaking Bad season 3, episode 2, where Walt's just been pepper sprayed. Skyler's just found out what he does and wants him away from the family. So Saul goes to see Walt in his apartment, and he's sad. He's talking about how he's lost his family, everything he cares about, and Saul does his usual act of being flippant and more interested in making sure he gets back to cooking.
She's out of my life. Do you understand? I've lost my family, everything that I care about.
Buddy, there are other fish in the sea.
But when he leaves, there is this look on his face, like talking to Walter about his wife pushing him away because of the path he went down in crime, actually reminded him of Kim, which could suggest they always had in mind his backstory, and always knew that even back then, he used to know someone like a wife, who is now estranged because of the path he went down. Now of course, you could interpret this as a look of frustration because he wants Walt to cook again, but the other side of it, having watched Better Call Saul, him looking back like that, he's definitely sad. We've seen this look before. This episode was 6 years before Better Call Saul even started. Dark Unknown. Feet. There are many times in Better Call Saul where characters' feet are shown, almost to the point of concern. People think they did it because they like feet, or the more optimistic view of it is that it's a tribute to Quentin Tarantino movies, as Vince Gilligan has done before and said he admired him and his films that inspired him when making Breaking Bad, particularly Pulp Fiction. There's memes of timestamps of all the times that Kim has shown her feet. Now don't worry, I know better than to show. This of course was all just a running joke, and it still is, but when season 6 was airing, Bob Odenkirk was found to be following perfect feet in sexy shoes on Instagram. He unfollowed it when this was found out. It's just funny that all of this exists and actually happened. Not to shame anyone. Deliberate reference, or have the writers and Bob been caught gooning? Better goon Saul. Well, I'm gonna stop. Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is when you remember something in a different way to what it was. It got its name from the popular wrong memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s when he died in 2013. The popular theory is that this is proof of parallel universes that were constantly switching in and out of them, and we remember stuff a certain way because they actually were slightly different in that universe. In my Breaking Bad Iceberg, I spoke about the one where people remember Mike or someone else calling Walter when he was walking up to Gus's house.
Go home, Walter.
Well, there's another Breaking Bad one, but with a Better Call Saul character. People have described remembering seeing Nacho with Tuco in Breaking Bad. I think this one is a bit easier to solve, and it's likely just people mixing up Better Call Saul scenes with Nacho and Tuco, perhaps with Jesse, with Walter, when it was actually just Gonzo or No-Dos, who did appear in both shows as Tuco's sidemen. But let me know if you've experienced this Mandela effect or any others. Team Science. One of the minisodes that I think is really obscure is a Breaking Bad animation actually canonly made by Jesse Pinkman himself.
In a world gone mad.
And it seems wacky and fun at first, but it's actually really sad. Now, it might be a bit odd to think Jesse would ever do this in Breaking Bad, but there was this short space between episodes in season 2 where I think he would have made this. I think it's after episode 10 where Jane sends him the apology girl drawing, but before episode 11 where Combo dies. Bro was more worried about the drink. And in this animation, we see how Jesse really sees everyone. He's created Walter as Dr. Chemistry, and he has him make a cure for a zombie disease, which is really cool when there's that theory that Walter's product created wildfire in The Walking Dead. Here he cures it. Jesse has brought to life those drawings he did when he was younger, the ones that he showed Jane, where they all look like him.
Backwardo. Oh no, I changed it to rewindo. Goes backwards. You can make everything go in reverse. That's Kanga, man. His sidekick Joey, he rides around in his pouch and, you know.
Only female kangaroos have pouches.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, he's definitely a dude. He's a product of experimentation.
I feel like Hoverman looks more like Saul, even though Jesse drew him. I think in this animation he looks more like him. And I think this could possibly be another example of the writers knowing more about Saul's backstory while Breaking Bad was happening. Hoverman has a family he no longer sees. It looks like Saul and Kim. Hank is the blowfish.
You are a blowfish.
Apology Girl, a character that Jane drew to apologize to Jesse.
Apology girl. It's many things, but she's mostly hot.
Sorry.
Badger, who can shapeshift.
Ricky. Then there's Skinny Pete, who knows when to ghost.
Combo can clone himself. Team Science against Hector Salamanca, and it says at the end for Mr. White. It's sad because you see how he views all these characters, and he created this happy fantasy where all of them are still alive and that he did care for Walter White.
Together, they are Team Science.
In El Camino, Skinny Pete said that Jesse was his hero. I think this shows that Jesse saw all these people as that as well. It would make more sense if this was Mike instead of Hank and his team of heroes, but it's not because he didn't know him yet. I think the whole point of having Hank in there is he's made him as some monster to make fun of him rather than have him as some cool hero. JPI. In season 1, episode 3 and 6 of Better Call Saul, you can see JPI graffitied, the same graffiti tag you see in Breaking Bad season 4, episode 7, in Jesse's house. Of course, with most of the same people making both shows, it makes sense that the set designers would do this, but I like to think this is Jesse Pinkman's tag, and it's an abbreviation of Jesse Pinkman Industries. Or, you know, something naive he would have said in the show when he was younger, treating what he does as some big business and graffitiing it and stuff. Because Jesse has certainly been to both these places in Better Call Saul before. It makes so much sense. This was actually written on a dispensary in a woman's toilet, so Mike was... Why was Mike in there? No, Mike went in there to get these out of the dispensers to make a makeshift bandage, because he was about to go out with his daughter-in-law. Graffitiing JPI on something like that is something a much younger Jesse would have done and thought was funny. Bob Odenkirk had his heart attack while filming season 6, episode 8. As if the news of his heart attack wasn't horrible enough, and fortunately he survived it. It's haunting to think that he had such a serious thing happen while filming episode 8 of all episodes, the darkest one of the show.
I mean, I really went down, I really turned gray, it really seemed over. They would have just stopped the show if I wasn't capable of doing it. They wouldn't have tried to go on, which makes me feel bad. If that had happened, I would have liked if they got some actors to play him, just to tell the story that they'd written. Wouldn't have been great, but it would have been better than nothing.
Saxton. Saxton was an officer that first appeared in season 3, episode 3 of Breaking Bad, and then again in season 2, episode 1 of Better Call Saul. Unlike some other smaller characters that were brought back, he never appeared again. And they might have just never intended to bring him back again anyway, but this might have had something to do with the actor, Stoney Westmoreland, being arrested and charged for trying to meet with a boy who was 1'3". Excuse the silly phrasing, again, YouTube can be weird about stuff. Now at the time, he was starring as a character called Ham on a show called Andy Mack, a literal Disney Channel show. He had communicated with an undercover law enforcement agent pretending to be a teacher on Grindr. He was sentenced to 2 years for 6 felony charges. Unfortunately, he didn't get to hurt a real person.
God, I should have gotten into computers.
You should have ran in the opposite direction of them. What happened to Lyle?
I need to see you a boss.
Harrison Thomas, the actor for Lyle, one of Gus's Los Polos Hermanos employees, has recently come out and said what he thinks happened to Lyle, as he didn't appear in Breaking Bad. He says he thinks Lyle worked at a different Los Polos Hermanos to Cynthia. When he found out about Gus, it destroyed him. He never had a great father figure, and his mother, working to support his household, he spent a lot of time alone. At first, he refused to believe it, but eventually grew to accept the truth about Gus, and had seen enough to confirm it for himself. Still, he chose to remember the good parts of Gus, the work ethic, professionalism, and unwillingness to compromise, and that's what he modelled his life after. He got a job at Twister's, which was the restaurant that replaced Los Pollos Hermanos when Gus died. He would then later open his own restaurant, El Hijo del Pollo, which means the chicken son. So Los Pollos Hermanos is the chicken brothers, Lyle's restaurant is the chicken son. He named it as a tribute to the man he thought Gus was, not the man he turned out to be. The opening goes great, and it seems like all will be well until someone shows up. Better dial Lyle. Now he says, as he didn't write the show, and he is a fan, chalk this up to a fan theory. I think Vince Gilligan is surprisingly flexible in what happens to the characters. He kind of likes to let people decide. I mean, the way he talks about Jesse is like he's not in control of him.
Jesse Pinkman rode off into the sunset, went to Alaska, and hopefully he got away with it. That's the guy that got away. Here's hoping. Knock on wood.
First of all, I think anyone who has an opinion on it has as valid an opinion as I do.
He really likes to let people decide, so I think the one to decide what happens to Lyle is the guy who plays Lyle, unless the writers completely disagree with it, or unless in another Breaking Bad project he appears and it disproves it.
Safe travels, Mr. Ring.
Goodbye, Lyle.
Nacho's blue flower is post Breaking Bad. So at the start of season 6 episode 3 where Nacho dies, you can see a blue flower, a desert bluebell, and we find out at the end of the episode is exactly where Nacho died. Not only does it symbolise humility, love and growth, but it's clearly set a long time after it happened in the Breaking Bad timeline. Other shows. There's many ways we could see the Breaking Bad universe again someday. As a game, as we spoke about, but the way that seems most likely right now, or at least at the time Better Call Saul ended, because they could have thought about a lot since then, is a prequel. Vince Gilligan seemed to really like the idea of a Lalo prequel.
It'd be interesting to see more what was happening with Lalo before, you know.
Mike prequel, a Lalo prequel. There's so many more seasons we could do.
I think you would have.
By the way, he'd be great in a show.
A Mike prequel was mentioned too. And with what Dexter Original Sin did recently, they did a show 15 years earlier than the main show and recast actors to play the younger versions of them. But had Michael C. Hall, the original actor for Dexter, still voiced it in a monologue. Now, no Breaking Bad character had the audible in a monologue, but I think this could really happen. The Dexter shows are going to make it more popular. They've even already written a Trinity Killer show with John Lithgow narrating it and a younger person being cast to play him. It would be amazing if they did a Mike prequel. That shows after Mike's knocked out, or even when he's talking to Jesse in the car in the shotgun episode, Mike telling Jesse his story of stuff he used to do. Mike narrates it to Jesse and we see a younger Mike.
I used to be a beat cop a long time ago, but there was this one guy that I will never forget. My partner and I get called out there every weekend.
Oh, you get lost? Figured, you know.
Oh, he's always slapped people. Kim could get her own spin-off. I've always seen it possible for them to do a short Badger and Skinny Pete show. Would be good to see Badger and Skinny Pete see that they didn't find Jesse. We heard a bit about Skylar accepting a deal, but would be good to see more of Walt Jr. Skylar used to mention she wanted to sell books again, so maybe she goes on to write a book being married to Heisenberg. Maybe she writes what Walter White was really like, and we get to see a show with her one day.
I said that if eventually I have enough good ones, that maybe I'll try publish another collection. At this rate, in 50 or 60 years, you'll be rich.
Every time I rewatch it, I also think about when Walt Jr. was filming everyone. Oh, Walt Jr., the most innocent one in the whole and they had messages for the camera for Holly. Like one day they could show her watching it 18, 20 years later.
Because when you watch this 20 years from now, I will look exactly the same as I do now.
Ollie, I'm very proud of you. I think about you all the time. And wherever you go, whatever you do in life, always know that you have a family who loves you very, very much.
So this is my Better Call Saul Iceberg. What do you think? Did you learn anything? Is there stuff you would add? Of course, much like Breaking Bad and El Camino, Better Call Saul had such a conclusive and perfect ending. I really hope we get another look into the Breaking Bad universe again someday, whether with a game or we have to wait a while before we do. Let me know what you think down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, go and check out my What If Mike Survived video. It's a realistic timeline of what I really think would have happened if he didn't die. Press the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.